These are 50 of the wackiest things about American culture that surprise first-time visitors to the USA. Now you might be thinking, Chris, what would you know about this? You've never been a first-time visitor to the USA. You are right. But I did post a question up on my YouTube community page, Instagram, and Facebook asking my non-American fellow explorers what your first-time experience was like in the USA and what surprised you. And boy, was I overwhelmed by the responses. I got over 500 responses to that question. And so we're going to be going through the top 50. If you're watching the live stream, I look forward to what surprised you the most on your first visit to the USA. Same if you're watching the archive. Leave me a comment. Let me know. All right, so we're going to start with the number one thing that surprises many visitors when they come to the USA, which is how different all the states are. And I heard this one over and over again, but I felt like one of the biggest extremes that I heard somebody reference was like the difference between Nevada and Utah. And so on the map, we've got California, just in from that, we've got Nevada, home to Las Vegas, gambling capital of the world. And then next to Nevada, we've got Utah, which is basically Mormon capital of the world. And so in Nevada, you have legalized gambling basically anywhere, in a supermarket, at a gas station, there are slot machines, to Utah, where you certainly can't gamble and you can't even buy alcohol on Sundays. And so, yes, you cross over these state borders and boy, it could absolutely feel like being in a different country 50 times over. And certainly Hawaii, the state out in the Pacific that on this map is right here by Texas, although it's way over there, is very different compared to all of the other U.S. states. I often like to say that Hawaii is like the United States of Asia, being so close to Asia. You know, things are definitely very different there. All right, the second thing that often surprises visitors about the USA is just how large it is. And certainly if we talk about the continental USA, which is this part that you see on the map with Canada to the north and Mexico to the south, that has the 48 continental states. If you were to drive from California to New York City at a leisurely pace of about 10 hours a day of driving, it'll take you like 5 to 6 days to drive from San Diego to New York City. If you were gonna fly, it takes you 6 hours to fly from one part of the country to the other part of the country. It is huge, it is massive. If you come to the USA for a month, you can't see it all. If you come to the USA for a year, you can't see it all. I am in my 40s and I have still not been to all 50 states. But there's more than just the states. All these other areas that you see around here, these little blue things, these are all other territories of the USA. Over here we've got Puerto Rico, and then if we go all the way over here, furthest away, we've got Guam. Guam, U.S. territory, is closer to Japan than it is from Hawaii. From Hawaii to get to Guam, it is an 8-hour flight from Hawaii to Guam or a 3-hour flight from Japan. There are no flights to Guam from the mainland of the USA. That is how big this country is. All right, the third thing that surprises people, and probably the number one thing that I heard, but in order they made sense this way, is the tipping culture. Many people really feel the tipping culture in the USA is out of control. And by the way, it's not just you as visitors that feel that way, it is us as Americans that feel that way too. And by the way, while this video might be interesting for visitors to the USA going like, oh, I wonder what I'll expect, also interesting to Americans to be like, what do people think about us? And so we've really reached new extremes here in the USA. Like, it was bad, but it's gotten worse since COVID, where you are prompted to leave a tip at every credit card terminal, at every experience, even at self-checkouts. There was an airport self-checkout where it would prompt you to leave a tip. Some restaurants print tip guides on their receipts to be like, this is how much you should tip. Hotel bellboys take your luggage to your room and then stand there for a very long time expecting money. But I heard stories where like it goes even further, it's even more blatant, where like at airports, there are these people called sky caps that might be there on the curb to help you take your luggage out of your car and then do a curbside check-in. And I don't know what airport this fellow explorer went to, but they went to one. Somebody helped them with their luggage out of the back of their car and then asked for a $20 tip in response. Bold, bold. But what I often feel like is that all these prompts for tips make visitors feel like they have to tip more and in more places than they actually do. Americans know the tipping rules, and so don't feel offended about just going 0 tip, 0 tip, 0 tip. In any given day, I'm saying 0 tip quite a few times because really the few people that are getting tips are restaurant wait staff, hotel staff, valets, things like that, taxi drivers, bartenders, but for the most part, the person who is, checking you out at the gift shop at the Las Vegas hotel, they don't get a tip. They don't get a tip. The fourth thing that surprised people coming to the USA is all of the extra fees on top of all of the prices. Yes, the USA has definitely cornered the market on extra fees and hidden fees and additional fees on top of prices. When you see a price advertised in the USA, rarely is it the full price. It often almost always does not include taxes, and then likely has extra fees on top. And so I put this receipt right here at a restaurant that I ate at that had a 18% service charge on top of your bill, and then said you could tip some more. But then you'll go to restaurants or places where then on top of that, they'll charge you a 3% employee health insurance fee, and then they'll charge you a 3% credit card surcharge fee, and then you're like, boy, where do the fees end? The good news is that the USA has recently passed a ruling that resort fees, the way they've been advertised, are deceptive, meaning that I give you one price, then I tell you a price later with all the resort fees, and now hotels that have all these fees in the USA need to advertise the full upfront price at the beginning that includes resort fees plus taxes. And Brandon here points out, Kathy, she said, I am not a fan of tipping. And Brandon says that even Australia is getting the tipping plague. Sad, sad. By the way, for each one of these things, we could dive into the reasons about why people aren't paid enough that are waitstaff. We should pay them more. That is not what this video is about. This video is about what surprises people when they come to the USA and the experience, not the root causes about it. Okay, so the fifth thing that surprises people when they come to the USA, and this was a very common thread across those 500 comments, was the amount of homeless people that people see in the USA. In particular, people named cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. This is a picture of Venice Beach where during the pandemic, the homeless were really just camping out on the boardwalk that used to be home for artists and things like that. It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. There are a lot of homeless in a lot of cities that there didn't used to be anymore. But I will say, this is a feeling I have about traveling the world, that like there are more homeless in more cities around the world. I was recently in Taipei, Taiwan, and there's homeless at Taipei main station that there didn't used to be. But yes, the USA definitely has the market cornered. You will see a lot of homeless camping out, begging for money. It is something to be aware of, and it's really bad in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, particularly in the downtown areas. It's not as bad on the East Coast because it gets way colder over there. It gets way colder, and so it's just not as conducive to be without a home on the East Coast, where if you're going to be homeless, you want to come to the West Coast where the weather is just pretty good a lot of the time. The sixth thing that surprises people when they come to the USA is how widely available marijuana is. My caveat is in states that have legalized it. And so obviously this is one where people share this when they went to states that it was legalized in. Marijuana is legalized in states like California, Nevada, Colorado. It is not legal in all 50 states, so you do have to be careful about this. But yes, back on that Venice Beach boardwalk, you can walk down the boardwalk and find a place that you can pick up some marijuana. In Las Vegas, you'll smell it all across the Las Vegas Strip. Same in places like Colorado, so it has definitely become ubiquitous in many places, though every state has its own rules about like, well, you can sell it, but you can't advertise it, so you might not see a billboard that says like marijuana. You can't use those words, but you can use other words. You can use like, come to Mr. Happy's, where you can be high as a kite, something like that, right? You can't tell them you sell marijuana, though. People won't be able to figure it out. People won't be able to figure it out. Points Traveler point out that marijuana is not legal in Tennessee or most other southern states. Absolutely. And so this goes on to the fact that the states are very, very different. And so people's experience visiting one state might not be representative of the entire country. James points out that Times Square also smells like a joint. Kathy says she loves the shirt, very patriotic. Thank you, Kathy. I dressed up just for you. Just for you. Many people hate the smell of marijuana as they are walking around. All right. Okay. So the seventh thing surprise people when they come to the USA are the toilets. I heard this one over and over again, and so I've bundled a lot of them into toilets. And certainly one thing that surprised people about toilets are the toilets at Resorts World in Las Vegas, that they have disco balls. Okay, that's not what surprised people about toilets. But that's a cool toilet. If you're ever in Las Vegas, go to the food hall. They have this like Asian food hall. Go to the restrooms in there. That's where you'll see those disco balls. But this is a picture of a typical American public restroom. And so the first thing that surprised people is that the stalls, they don't go all the way down. There's usually like a foot gap at the bottom, so you can like see people's feet down there. Two, what surprised people is in the doors, they usually don't like, or the side panels, they usually don't line up very well. So there will often be gaps in there where like from the inside you can kind of peek out, from the outside you can kind of peek in. Things that surprised people that I would say were from Australia or Europe was the size of the toilet bowl. Many fellow explorers cited our toilet bowls were very big. And then in particular, many Australians said that we have a surprising amount of water in our toilets, that Australian toilets have less water. And one fellow Australian explorer likened the water in our toilets to the amount of water in a swimming pool. Bidets aren't really a thing in the USA, so if you come from a place where you're used to washing your bottom in a public restroom, you generally won't find that here. You generally won't find bidets even in hotels. Restrooms, people are often surprised that we often don't call it, like where are the toilets, the sign will say restrooms. And it also surprised many Europeans that public toilets in the USA are free. Yes, in most parts of the USA, there are pay restrooms are not a thing. Public restrooms generally are free. That doesn't mean they're good, but it means they're free. All right. We'll go back to a couple comments here. Brandon says, I said this many times, I don't like the doors for the stalls. I don't like them either, right? And so this will be one where you'll see a lot of these things that surprise visitors to the USA, Americans don't like either. You're like, I don't understand. And if you go back to this bathroom at Resorts World with the doors that go all the way down, I like that so much better. I don't know why. Oh, I mean, I know why, right? The reason people cite these is it's easier to clean because they can just like clean right over it. They can hose it down, where these are much harder to clean because you got to like get in there and really do a job. So, yes, Shay says public restrooms in the USA, gross. Public restrooms in the USA, many places, gross. But this also depends what part of the USA. You know, if you're in Las Vegas, the restrooms in the casinos are quite amazing. But yes, if you're at a beach restroom, not that great. But I've been to lots of other places that are for sure worse. GP says Bucky's bathroom for the win. Amazing. Meritocratic Mafia points out this one, and I've got this one later as a separate one, but this point about you have to buy something in stores before they give you code to open the digital lock to use the washroom. I have seen that employed in many parts of Europe as well. You go to McDonald's in Europe and right, it'll have a code printed on your receipt that you need to use to open the restrooms. Soham says, I wish there were more public restrooms in the USA that we could pay for clean ones. Yeah, and that is the pro. Like maybe you charge people $1 and then you actually clean these things. And Pretty Nostalgic from Australia says we only have water at the very bottom of the bowl. I think the theory behind the big water is that if you go number 2 into it, like it sinks to the bottom and it doesn't smell up the thing. I heard someone else cite that they were surprised that we didn't have brushes for the toilets to clean the toilets, but because we have so much water, then you don't really need the brush to brush it. Okay, let's go on to number 9. Number 8. The 8th thing that surprised visitors to the USA is the vast variety of products at supermarkets. American supermarkets are a thing to behold. According to the documentary Food Incorporated, the average number of products that an American supermarket carries is 47,000. 47,000 different items in the average American supermarket is an astounding number of things, which means there's an astounding amount of choice. You will find in an American supermarket an entire aisle of cereal. And not like an aisle that's like 10 feet long, but like an aisle that's like 100 feet long that is just cereal as far as the eye can see. OC Girl said recently when she was in Taiwan, she had this opposite experience that she was looking for peanut butter, and when she would go to a supermarket in Taiwan, at most they would have like 3 different types of peanut butter. But if you're gonna go to an American supermarket, there are probably in a typical American supermarket like 30 different types of peanut butter. I mean, the like choice is amazing. And so this is one where like if you're coming to the USA and you've never been to an American supermarket before, visiting one is absolutely like a cultural experience. Codful of Love says, I recently traveled out of the country and I was blown away with that lack of choice elsewhere. Indeed, indeed. James says, I love the alcohol selection at Walmart. 2-liter bottles of wine. Very good, very good. Okay. Number 10, the 10th thing that really, number 9. The 9th thing that really surprised people when they come to the USA is the portion sizes at our restaurants. Where am I here? I'm at the buffet at the Caesar's Palace. Obviously, you're gonna get a lot of food at the buffet, but, you know, definitely Las Vegas and places like that have made the buffet like, you know, we've made like eating huge portions absolutely a competition in the USA. We have the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. If you go to restaurants like Cheesecake Factory and Cracker Barrel, a typical 1 serving size portion that you order off the menu is often enough to feed like 2 to 3 people. You know, they are huge portions. And so it is very typical for people who've grown up in the USA to not feel guilty about leaving food on their plates. People from other countries who've grown up to be like, well, you have to eat everything on your plate. If you go to Cheesecake Factory, you can't physically eat everything on your plate. Like, the portions are not designed that way. The portions are designed for you to have more than you can eat, so you are not possibly hungry. Or you take a doggy bag and you take it home and you eat it later. Now, one thing to note about the portion sizes, they're not just food, they're also the drinks. Our drink sizes are very big, and in the cities, in the big cities, the portion size will often be smaller. Like if you go to San Francisco or Los Angeles or New York City or Boston or Washington, D.C., you'll often find smaller portion sizes. But the further you get from the big cities, you go out into the country, the portion sizes definitely get much bigger. Someone said they were surprised at how early American super restaurants close. They were surprised at how early American restaurants close. And they didn't tell me where they went, and they didn't tell me where they were from. I'm only gonna have to assume that they were visiting restaurants in the countryside of the USA, because in the cities, restaurants are open very, very late. Where OC Girl and I live, there is a 24-hour Korean tofu restaurant. You know, if you want Korean tofu at 3 in the morning, no problem. In-N-Out Burger is open from 10 a.m. until 1 in the morning. And so most restaurants, I shouldn't say most restaurants, but if you're in the cities, you're going to be able to eat any time of day. My dad, Electric Rick, says, I wish I could find small burritos, but they seem to be non-existent. If you're up in Orange County, Dad, I've got some thoughts for you. There are some places that serve like burritos from different parts of Mexico, and like there's one restaurant that serves like 3 burritos for $5. They're small burritos, yeah. So they do exist. But in San Diego, where my dad is from, yes, it's like if you ever serve a burrito, it's got to be like the size of your arm. Otherwise, you know, it's not good enough. Okay. Larry says, if you're watching USA television, you will constantly see commercials about fast food, weight loss, and erectile dysfunction treatments. Absolutely, those are all on television. And by the way, Larry, I love to see you in the yellow production shirt right there. What's in the background? I can't tell what that. It's not Universal Studios. What is that? You look like you're at a theme park of sorts. Okay. Smash the Number says if a restaurant closes at 1 a.m., that's very early in Barcelona. All right, well, thank you for that data point. Smash the number. So see what I think is late. Other people might consider early. Okay, the 10th thing that surprised people when they come to the USA is if you're paying cash, how much change you get in response, and then how often useless that change is. Often surprises people that we still have pennies, which is the 1-cent coin, in addition to nickels, dimes, and quarters. Why are all these coins useless? Because if you're out and about using vending machines, generally the only coins that vending machines take are quarters. And pennies, nickels, and dimes are pretty useless. And they are pretty useless unless you're paying with cash, which is why many Americans have just abandoned cash and have gone to some sort of digital payment, credit cards, debit cards, Apple Pay, Google Pay, whatever it may be, to avoid all this change in your pocket. But I feel like that's another trend that I see around the world. More people go into more digital payments and just leaving the coins and the paper as a thing behind. Point Traveler says, this live stream brought to you by Ozempic, the weight loss drug. All right, there we go. Ozempic. I don't know that that's their catchphrase, but it could be. Speaking of my dad, here's a picture of my dad. Why is he here? Well, because the 11th thing that people said surprised them about coming to the USA is many people said they were surprised how friendly Americans are, particularly in their own country, that they can be nice and they can be chatty. And this is in contrast to the experience that many people have had with Americans abroad, saying that these Americans abroad were rude and nasty and loud and unruly. But when I came to the USA, everybody that I met that was just so friendly. My dad's here because he's probably one of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. If he sees you, he doesn't know you. He's going to say hi, how are you, howdy, and strike up a conversation. If you ever see this yellow car driving around San Diego, that's my dad, Electric Rick. Say hi. Now, I think some people, if we look at there are some people who will say oh, I visited the USA and they were rude. This is a smaller category than the previous category. Most people said Americans were generally very friendly. West Coast versus East Coast, big cities versus country. New York City and Boston are known as being particularly rude cities. And people tend to get nicer the further south and the further west you go. In the South, it's often known as Southern hospitality. And let me tell you, people in the South often quite charming and friendly. But one explorer said they were surprised that every New Yorker they met was actually much friendlier than the stereotype led them to be. If you wonder where the nicest people are in the USA, Hawaii generally wins that contest year over year over year. That's why they say there's the aloha spirit in Hawaii, that they're just really friendly people there. Soham says East Coast people are a little rough on the edges. I think it's all it's less about rough on the edges. Grovel says New Yorkers are nice, but it's New Yorkers are busy. They're busy. And so if you go to a pizza restaurant, if you're standing there looking at the pizza case and there's a line behind you, they might be step aside when you make up your mind, let me know. I'm going to serve the people behind you, right? Because they're we're going to be efficient. There's a long line. Let's go. Not to be nice, they're trying to be nice to the people behind you because you're all hogging up the line. Drunken says California people are rude. Yeah, see, and I think it depends where you go. What part of California did you think people are rude? I'm from California. Am I rude? I like to think not. Grew up in San Diego. San Diego is also known as being a big surf town. So pretty friendly people in San Diego because if the surf's up, let's go to the beach today. It's life's too short to get angry about things, especially when the surf is up. Okay. Let's go on to number 12. The 12th thing that surprised people coming to the USA for the first time is our sugary breakfasts. Yes, we love sugar for breakfast in the USA. Those breakfast cereals I talked to you about earlier, pretty much all of them are highly sweetened. Some fellow explorers cited kids having cupcakes or cakes for breakfast. Our daughter, the 5-year-old curious princess, is what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? But a typical American breakfast right here. We've got some French toast, we've got some eggs, but yes, the French toast is gonna have lots of maple syrup on it, some whipped cream, some fruit, definitely to make it sweet. Americans like their breakfast quite sweet. I know many people around the world prefer a savory breakfast, but sweet breakfast is where it's at in the USA. Of course, you go to the South, and then you get like biscuits and gravy, which is actually like a savory thing. But maple syrup, I think we've inherited that from Canada. All right. The 13th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is that Americans wear shoes inside their homes. Another data point about it depends who you meet, where you went, whose home you went to, but that's why we got the picture of the Curious Princess here with her shoes on. We're at a shopping mall. Actually, this is the Westfield Mall in Century City because we don't wear shoes in our homes, but there are absolutely many people who wear shoes in their homes, so wouldn't be surprising if you were invited to somebody's house and they've got their shoes on inside their house. Okay. The 14th thing that surprised people when they come to the USA is people who are used to driving on the other side of the road, the left side of the road. They're surprised that when they get into the car, they get into the wrong side. Like, I want to get in the driver's side, but it's the wrong side, or if they're passenger, they go ahead and get into the wrong side too. We'll have the opposite experience driving here on the right side of the road. If we go to place on the left side of the road, we will often be at the wrong side of the car. Like, oh, the driver's side is over there, isn't it? Like, it's just something that's ingrained in you for so long as to which side of the car you get in, if you're a driver or if you're a passenger, that it takes a little brain work to get over it. The 15th thing that surprises first-time visitors to the USA is that Chipotle, this restaurant here, which is famous for their burritos, is not pronounced like it is spelled. Chipotle? Chipotle might be how you pronounce that, but much of the USA used to be Mexico, and so many words in the USA are Spanish words, many place names are Spanish names, many roads are Spanish names, and so many things in the USA have Spanish names. And so Chipotle is one example of that it is a Spanish word with a Spanish pronunciation instead of a American English pronunciation. By the way, if you wonder where Chipotle originated from, Chipotle originated in the very Mexico-close state of Colorado, which, if you're doing the math, and I showed you that map earlier, quite far from Mexico. It's good food, but authentic Mexican food, it is not. This is the original Chipotle location right here in Denver, Colorado. The 16th thing that surprised visitors to the USA is America's love for guns. Yes, depending upon where you are, depending upon which state, there are different regulations and perspectives on whether it is okay to carry weapons out in public. Certainly Texas is one that is known for having much more weapons out in public. California, you can't carry your rifle out with you into many places. But in the states that do have a we'll call it high love for guns, then in restaurants or establishments, you'll often see signs that will say no firearms in this restaurant, in this premise, in this hospital, because in those places it is okay to openly carry. I also heard a fellow explorer from the UK say they were surprised to see law enforcement eating dinner in restaurants with their weapons on. And they absolutely will. There's a restaurant that I often like to eat lunch at called Baja Fish Tacos. They have really great fish tacos. The one I go to, like the local police department and the California Highway Patrol, they all love to come and eat at this restaurant. And when they do, they're in their full uniform. They've got their weapons around their waist. They're ready to go if they're called, to be like, stop eating. You need to respond. So you will absolutely see our law enforcement with their weapons out in public. And then there were also people, clearly some fellow explorers who might have moved here to the USA, saying that they were surprised about shooting drills in schools, that there will absolutely be drills in schools about if there's an active shooter on campus, what do you do, where do you go, duck cover, lock the door, don't lie on the floor because bullets will have a tendency to hug the floor. It's better for you to crouch than to do that, and who do you call and where do you go? And yes, that's a thing in the USA. All right. Yeah, Grovel says, no firearms in the bars. Those would definitely be one. That would have the sign and metal detectors and all those sorts of things. Rhino says, just said. Absolutely. I'm not turning this into a political conversation about why or the options, other than these are things that you will experience when you come to the USA. But yes, Professor Fear says, if you don't carry a gun, don't if you don't carry a gun, don't accept any duels at high noon. That's a good tip, Professor Fear. Also, it is one where I would say, well, I'll say most people's experience, I would say in most places that they don't see people carry weapons. Like for me, the only people living in California, the only people I see carrying weapons are law enforcement. I don't see anybody else carrying weapons on a day-to-day basis, but I don't live in one of those other states that do. And when I go to them, I see the signs and I'm like, oh, I know where I am now. Okay. The 17th thing that surprised visitors to the USA are four-way stops. In particular, our fellow explorers from Australia said they were used to roundabouts and they had never seen four-way stops before. Four-way stop is an intersection where every part of the intersection has a sign that says stop. Everybody's supposed to stop, and then the first person who got there, they're the ones who get to go. And so, yes, if it's your first time, you might be like, when's it my turn, or whose turn in it, and who gets to go, and who is on first. What is Chris drinking today? Today, Chris is drinking a Royal No. 9 milk tea from the Alley. This is a tea that has a hint of blueberry flavor in it. Blueberry. But if I was speaking my British English, it would be blueberry. All right, great. Number of people have said, nice outfit, Larry. Thank you very much for recognizing that I dressed up for this live stream today. All right, thank you. The 18th thing that surprised people to the USA is unlimited refills on drinks. Yes, in many restaurants, many fast food establishments, you will get a cup at the counter that they'll give to you, and they'll point you over to the soda fountain, and you just get as much as you want to drink. Refill that drink 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 times. They don't care. It's truly unlimited refills. And it is. And many times at restaurants, too. You get a soda, same thing. Where you're not going to get unlimited refills or on, like alcohol, you're not going to get unlimited refills. You're not going to get, like, refills on smoothies or things like that. But if it's the sodas or often iced teas, you will get refills on those. The 19th thing that surprises people when they come to the USA is the existence of Cheese Whiz. Cheese in a can. That's right. This is gourmet, culinary, American food. That's right. And one of the places that you are likely to see Cheese Whiz at a restaurant is if you go to Philadelphia and you have a Philadelphia cheesesteak. They will often offer you and say, would you like it with whiz or without whiz? That means, do you want some liquid cheese on your Philly cheesesteak or not? Chris, why is the cheese yellow? That's a whole different subject to why cheese in the USA is yellow. Many explorers were surprised coming to the USA about how large our elevators are. Yes, if you come from Europe, particularly where the elevators are quite small, you come to the USA and the elevators are quite big. This picture that I took, this is not the outside of the elevator. This is the inside of the elevator. I'm at the Aria, I think I'm at the Aria Hotel right here in Las Vegas. And it's also funny doing the inverse when I get to like an elevator in Italy and I'm with some friends or some colleagues and like it's 6 Americans that get on the elevator and we're like no more people will fit in this elevator, but there's a sign that says the capacity is like 12. Like how do 12 people fit in this elevator? It's clearly not 12 American people. I didn't put this one as a number, but many explorers were surprised at how large Americans are. And I think they were talking about large in the vein of like Cartman from South Park, where he always says he's large because he's big boned, All right, that's it. But, you put a few Americans on one of those Italian elevators and we're not making it up to that people capacity of it. That's why the elevators need to be big in the USA. 21st thing that surprised people coming to the USA. I took this one phrase from one comment, but it was ubiquitous, where people said the USA doesn't look very rich from driving around. And OC Girl and I talk about this. Even if you come into like Los Angeles International Airport and you're driving away from the airport, like 3 blocks from the airport, it's a rough neighborhood. So like clearly in Los Angeles, nobody spent any time being like, we should make the first things that people see like nice, instead of like, who wants to live next to one of the world's busiest international airports? Nobody is the answer. And so that neighborhood, really not great. You don't want to walk around there in the middle of the night. But it's the first thing that you see when you come into Los Angeles. There's a lot of that. Same thing. Like you fly in the JFK airport in New York City. You drive out of the airport in your taxi to get to Manhattan. And you're like, oh, this, I don't think we should stop. I hope this car doesn't break down. And I think a lot of people, they go, well, America, USA, it's the richest country in the world. When I get there, like the streets should be paved of gold and all these things, and it's not that. We've got poverty, just like many other countries around the world too. Okay. The 22nd thing that surprised people coming to the USA is our coffee, that it's awful. That's what many people say. Many people say our coffee is awful, and they particularly point at Starbucks. And I think this is one where if you are used to a good espresso-based coffee, cappuccino, that sort of stuff, not going to find a lot of that in the USA. Drip coffee is what rules here. So I would just say take it as a cultural experience to enjoy some tea. There you go. All right. The 23rd thing that surprised people coming to the USA is that you can turn right on a red light. Unless it has a sign that says no turn on red, which is that sign right up there. Yes, so to ease the flow of traffic in the USA, because we drive on the right, if you're at a red light, you can make a right turn on the red light as long as no cars are coming. You're not going to hit them when you go that way. The only exception is in New York City, in Manhattan. You can't make right turns on red in Manhattan. So if you see people making a right turn on red in the USA, it is not illegal. Now, as a pedestrian, you do kind of have to be aware because you're crossing the street and then these people might have a red light, but they still might want to make that right turn. So you kind of got to play a game to be like, hey, do you see me? You're not going to go, right? Which is actually kind of nice in places where they can't do that because you're like, I know this car's not going to go because they have a red light. They're not going to, I don't have to do this dance to be like, do you see me? Do you see me? Can I go now? All right. James goes back on coffee and says, it is so wrong in the USA. So wrong. I generally only drink coffee when I'm not in the USA. Yeah, that's right. I don't like American coffee either. If for those people, for visitors who don't like American coffee, I'm curious if you've had Blue Bottle coffee and if you like Blue Bottle coffee any better. Blue Bottle coffee is about the only coffee that I drink in the USA. And Grovel agrees, never assume a car won't go, Chris. Absolutely. As a pedestrian in the USA, you definitely have to like pretend you're invisible. Like they can't see you, you know? And I say that to be like, assume they don't see you. Otherwise you might get hit. Kathy says Australian coffee is the best. I quite enjoy Australian coffee as I do Italian coffee. So I drink coffee when I am in Australia. Alex points out that Dutch Brothers is worse than Starbucks. Hate it. Can't stand Dutch Brothers. Neither can my wife. OC girl, too sweet. Way too sweet. Somebody explain Dutch Brothers. If there's somebody on the live stream that really enjoys Dutch Brothers, tell me why you enjoy Dutch Brothers. Culture points out that the crossing the street is not as risky here as it is in Taiwan. True. And not as risky as it is in Malaysia. Boy, in Kuala Lumpur, across some intersections, I was like, these cars, I even have a walk symbol and they're not stopping. They're just like continuing to go. I'm like, oh man, I really feel like I'm playing the video game Frogger. I have at least one person who agrees with me on Blue Bottle coffee being top tier. All right, I'm glad to hear that I have at least 1+1 on that. Okay. Next number. The 24th thing that surprised visitors when they come to the USA is that our power outlets that look like this don't have any switches. Because in many parts of the world, including the UK, power outlets will have switches. So you can turn off the outlet, plug in your thing, turn it back on to avoid sparks. I think this has something to do with the voltage difference in the USA, being that we're only 100 some volts, and in other places it's 200 volts. And so yes, I find that when I'm in these places, if I don't turn the switches off, the plugs spark when I plug them in. But in the USA, you don't really have that issue because of the lower voltage. I'm not an electrician, so maybe I shouldn't be telling you the theory as to why I think that. That's just my educated guess. But you will not find switches on the plugs in the USA. And Americans, when you go abroad, if you see an outlet like this and it doesn't work, it's because you didn't turn it on. The 25th thing that surprised people about coming to the USA, particularly those fellow explorers from the UK and Australia, is that we don't use the word Fortnite in the USA unless we're talking about the video game. So now there might be many Americans that say, Chris, what Fortnite? What is that? Like literally, Sugary and I had this conversation. I said this, and she's, what is a Fortnite? What is a Fortnite, Chris? Well, it's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. My Australian and my UK friends, those who speak British English, will know a fortnight means 2 weeks. I have the first fortnight, middle fortnight, 2 consecutive weeks. Here it's 2 weeks. We literally just don't use that term, and we don't even know what that term is. So if you come to the USA and use the term fortnight and people look at you like a deer in the headlights, not weird. It is what it is. I looked it up, and apparently this term fell out of favor in the USA and Canada in the early 1900s. Grovel says, I made it up. Kathy says, what do you call it? We call it 2 weeks. That's what we call it. We wouldn't say every fortnight, every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, that's it. Okay. The 26th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is our freedom of speech. And so, yes, in the U.S. Constitution, freedom of speech, one of our rights, those sorts of things in the USA. And for the most part, it's really a celebrated part of America. And I make this bigger, not because I'm trying to spread these messages, but just to say that this is an example of free speech in the USA. This is in front of San Diego Comic-Con, in front of the convention center. And these people come out there every year with their signs and their bullhorns to tell you to repent or perish or prepare to meet thy God. And I'm not sure that anybody really enjoys listening to them out there, but the police come out there to protect them from the hecklers and all those things, and to be like, we celebrate the fact that these people have their free speech, and if this is what they would like to come here and say, they are absolutely welcome to say it. As long as they're not blocking the road, causing a disturbance, they are welcome to their free speech. 27th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is that Hollywood Boulevard isn't full of celebrities. It is just full of souvenir shops and bus tour vendors and stripper clothes. That's right. I have a whole video about Hollywood Boulevard. If you want to see what it really looks like, you can watch my walking tour of it. But it is usually a disappointment for most people that visit. The 28th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is how processed our food is. And boy, do we like preservatives here in the USA. I don't know, as citizens that we like preservatives, but boy, the food corporations, they like their preservatives. So things can have a long shelf life because, you know, those supermarkets need to carry 47,000 things. Probably the icon of preserved American food is the Hostess Twinkie, the Ding Dong, or the Ho Ho. They're all kind of varieties of the same things. You know, if you grew up on these things, you're like, oh, they're pretty tasty as a kid. Like, as you get older, you're like, you eat this thing, you're like, what, how long has this been on the shelf? It's probably been on the shelf for 10 years. I actually think that, I feel like this was like at its height in like the 70s and the 80s with the television dinner and all those sorts of things. And I feel like, you know, 50 years from that here in the 2020s, there's definitely a big like fresh food, no preservative movement. I'll tell you, like for bread, Sugary and I, we go get our bread from the Korean or the Japanese bakery, like the bread that is baked like every day right there, no preservatives. So you will find a lot of that. I guess it's one of those where like you have to know where to look. And so if it's your first time visiting, you're probably just going to experience a lot of these things because it's what you'll find at the convenience store or the gas station or the gift shop at the hotel, because it has a shelf life of forever. Forever. Alex says, do you remember when people were spending hundreds of dollars on boxes of Twinkies? I do, because the Hostess was like declaring bankruptcy and you weren't going to be able to get them anymore. Grovel says it tastes better if you make your own snack cakes. Culture says, I think you would be surprised when ingredients are allowed to be in packaged food in East Asia. Some much worse than America. I believe it, Culture. I absolutely believe it. Tony says, I heard in countries like France, they make fried broccoli nuggets to encourage kids to eat healthy in school since school food in America is too obvious to be processed. Jet and Compass says, you guys have so much food that we don't have, but we get ketchup chips and coffee crisps. All right, there you go, Jet and Compass. The 29th thing that surprised visitors to the USA is that nobody walks anywhere. And I heard this one a lot, particularly in reference to the state of Florida. That many parts of the USA, and Florida as a part of the USA, but in particular Florida, were absolutely built for cars. And were not built for pedestrians, like at all. And so in many places in Florida, you just can't walk. There's no sidewalk, there's no crosswalk, there's no way to get over there. A fellow explorer cites that when they were in Florida, they were staying at a hotel, and across the street was a Walmart, but they literally couldn't walk there because of the way the street was structured and the lights and this and that. They had to get in their car and they had to drive to Walmart just to be able to get across the street. Absolutely an experience you'll have in suburban USA. In the cities, there's definitely a lot more sidewalks, but in the countryside, you might find a lot of these places that have no sidewalks. And yes, if you don't have a car out of the city, rough. The USA is definitely a car-first country. The 30th thing that surprised visitors to the USA is also related to cars. It is the speed at which cars drive, as if the speed limits are merely a suggestion. So on the freeways, as we call them, although I guess it's a tollway, you might call it a tollway, we have this interstate highway system that we typically call freeways. There are the things that have like I-5, I-10, I-95. There are these funded by the federal government and set up to span multiple states. That's why they're called interstates. And they will typically have a speed limit of 55 miles per hour, 65 miles per hour, 75 miles per hour, something like that. And you will generally find cars that are like in a 65 mile per hour speed limit driving 80, 85 miles per hour, like driving out from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. You'll regularly see cars going 90, 95, and you're like, am I missing something? Like, and if you're driving the speed limit, like everybody's gonna be like, dude, what's with you, man? Can't you see? Like, we can keep moving. It's kind of weird because in the US, it's sort of like, well, this is the speed limit, but you need to move with the flow of traffic. And so if traffic is moving faster, then maybe you need to move faster too, which I know this one's particularly surprising to Australians because like in Australia, there are speed cameras that'll like ticket you for going like 1 kilometer per hour over the speed limit. There are speed traps here that'll do that for you too. I have gotten a speeding ticket in Arizona for like not going much more over the speed limit. I was driving in the middle of nowhere. This high patrol car was sitting on the side of the highway. They're there to just ticket people as they go by. So it was definitely kind of like set up as like, this is speed. When the high patrol pulled me over, he's like, hey, do you know how fast you were going? I'm like, I'm sure you do. Go ahead and tell me. He's like, speed limit 65. You were going 69. So, I have your ticket written up and have you out of here in 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, great. Collect the money for the Arizona Treasury. Good on ya. Yeah, that's right. Culture says Dallas Audubon. Dallas Audubon. Indeed, you'll get past going 110 miles per hour. Points Traveler says maybe he targets yellow cars. I'm sure it did not help that I was driving a yellow car. And Kathy concurs with me that if we speed in Australia, we would get a ticket. And Mars112 recognizes that this picture is a picture of Disney Springs. It absolutely is. This is a picture of Disney Springs. And if you didn't get where the last picture was, this was the Grand Floridian Hotel at Disney World, since I spent a lot of time talking about Florida. All right, there you go. Like doing these live streams is a way for me to like collect like all the pictures of every time that I go into Google Photos and I sort of type to find things to be like, what would be good for this picture? All right, the 31st thing that surprised people coming to the USA is the lack of feeling safe. I will read you the quote that a Singaporean shared. This person said, as a Singaporean and as a person who travels to the US frequently for work, the first thing that really shocked me was the feeling of the lack of safety. Nobody needs to tell it to you. You can just feel it. It's a combination of the location, infrastructure, and behavior of people that gives off this lack of safety vibe. And this would absolutely be one that I would say really depends where you're going to. If you're walking down an alley that looks like this, probably doesn't matter where you are in the world. This is downtown Los Angeles. This could be in Australia, and you'd be like, I don't know about that. But, if you're hanging out at Disney World, it's all pretty safe at Disney World. There we go. Okay. The 32nd thing that surprised people coming to the USA is that we often ask, how's it going or how you doing as a greeting, even to complete strangers. Friends made it famous right here. Joey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? And it is. You'll come to the USA and you will hear this. The typical greeting in Hawaii is, how's it? Short for, how's it going? And it's like, people are actually looking for your response. How's it going? Good, fine, great. Or not so great, absolutely. If it's not so great, then you can say, hey, not so great, right? Okay. But then, of course, you answer, and then they expect, part of the greeting is for then you to ask them back, hey, how are you? How you doing? How you doing? All right. How you doing? Right on. All right. Yeah, Kathy says in Australia, it's good day, mate. Good day, mate. Good day, mate. That's right. Then Grovel says, don't tell us how you're actually doing, even if you ask. There are absolutely, there's we're not asking you for your life story at that point, But it's one of those, how you doing? Could be better. Mate, hope you get better. Hope you get better. Although that'd be the Australian mate. There we go. And Grant says, yes, how's it is spelled how's it. Rig Rental says, give him the head nod. Head nod. There you go. There you go. Okay. The 33rd thing that surprises people coming to the USA is the unfriendliness of the TSA and the CBP. These are the two agencies that are involved in border security and immigration. And I heard this cited specifically for northeasterly things. So land border crossings in the Northeast, also coming into New York City airports, that the people that man these checkpoints are not very friendly. And I will say, while I probably don't experience as much because I don't need to interact with CBP as much coming back into the USA, it's a bit more about welcome home, come on in. But I've witnessed some interactions and I'm like, dude, these people don't know where they're going. They just got here. You don't have to be all salty and you don't have to be all nasty to them. I'm not saying they're all salty and nasty. I've met some very nice TSA and CBP officers, but I think this goes back to where people are surly and where they're not surly. In the Northeast, you're going to find a lot more surly behavior from these border agencies too. Points Traveler says the DMV has friendlier staff than the TSA. One of my favorite DMV jokes is in the movie with the rabbit. What? Zootopia. If you've not seen Zootopia, where they go to the DMV and there's a whole bunch of sloths working at the DMV. It's absolutely what it feels like to go to the American Department of Motor Vehicles. Yeah, that's right. Culture said, take your laptops out of your bag. If you got a hoodie on, take it off. I generally travel with an empty bottle of water, and the TSA people be like, no water, no bottles. It's empty. And they're like, oh. I feel like that's what they're secretly doing to me. All right. The 34th thing that surprised people coming to the USA, particularly those who come to Los Angeles, is how much garbage is on the streets of LA. I tried to find a picture that I took of garbage on the streets in LA. I never took one. There is a lot of garbage on the streets of LA, particularly in the LA Arts District, or you go around Skid Row where, you can be homeless on the street and it's okay. There's definitely some parts of LA where the city of LA doesn't bother to clean up the trash on the trash on the streets. It seems like. What is this picture of? This picture is in the port of Los Angeles of a building that they often use for movie shootings. They've used Mission Impossible, things like that. So it's probably why they just keep it run down. We don't use this anymore, but it makes a lot of money on movies. So there you go. 35th thing, surprise people coming to the USA, is our elderly people who are still working. This one, particularly one was submitted from a fellow explorer from France. I could certainly see that from countries where people retire at a young age. There's a high social safety net set up and this and that. what this is a picture of, this is a picture inside Walmart. One place you will often find elderly people working are the greeters of Walmart. Like, they stand at the front and they say, welcome to Walmart. There are gonna be a bunch of reasons for that. Social Security doesn't really kick in the US until like 60 some, but if you want more money, it's best to wait till 70 to get your maximum payout. And so it helps for the social net to like work later so that you can collect more money every month. But then there's also some people who are just like, I don't just want to sit on my porch and play the banjo. You know, if I can go spend 10 hours a week as a greeter at Walmart, I will, because it's better than sitting on my porch playing banjo and looking at alligators. Tony says, I speak of garbage cities like Los Angeles, but you should mention how dirty Bakersfield, California is. My friend described it as the armpit of California. Tony, thank you for that data point. Okay. I will say Bakersfield does have some really good barbecue, so it's got that going for it. All right, the 36th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is still the racism that exists in this country, certainly from the days of slavery to Martin Luther King and this and that. You know, we are a melting pot of nations, but we absolutely are a nation still divided. Growing up in California, like I don't feel or see it as much in my day-to-day life around here, but then when I hear about people in other parts of the country, when people said what, or people do what, or I've had taxi drivers pick me up in some places, and I was like, say what? Say what? Okay, I see how it is. There was I was in a training thing at one point. It's like a leadership training thing, and somebody was asking what he should do about an employee that he had that would bring a KKK costume into his cubicle and display it there. That's the big white thing with the this and that. Like, what do I do with that person? Well, obviously you tell him he can't bring it to work and he should take it home, and there's probably other things that you should do, but like the fact that somebody thought that was okay, you know, tells you a little bit about but we still have a ways to go on that in the US. The 37th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is that people have specific walking shoes for Germany. This one was submitted from Germany. We have specific walking shoes submitted by a fellow explorer from Germany. And absolutely, we have specific walking shoes. Here's some of mine. Here's some yellow Nikes. Actually, I really like the Hoka Bondi shoes. But many people who work in the big cities, like you work in New York City, you're a high-powered lawyer or marketing firm, you know, you're a girl, maybe you're wearing your high heels, you're a guy, you're wearing your fancy leather shoes, very well might have a pair of shoes like this to commute on the subway and walk to the office and then change out of these into their heels or into their fancy leather shoes. Fairly typical for Americans to do that. Or have a separate pair of shoes that they use to go out for a run at the office versus what they use to like be all fancy. The 38th thing that surprised people coming to the USA are these e-scooters, saying that people use these everywhere. Depends on the city you go to. In San Diego, they're everywhere. We hate them, but they're everywhere. They've taken over the country for a while. Now they're kind of going down like this, but you will still see these littering the streets of many U.S. cities. The 39th thing that surprised people coming to the USA are lawyer billboards. You see this so much in Los Angeles. You drive on the 405 or the 5, those interstates through LA, and you will see a lawyer billboard every minute. You'll see them one after another. You're hurt in a trucking accident, workman's compensation, call us. There's definitely a large litigation culture in the USA. The 40th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is the wait staff at restaurants will take your credit card away when you pay. Because they need to run it on a machine that's back there, which surprises many people because they're like, what do you mean you take my credit card? Don't you bring the machine to me? I'll say since COVID, there's been a lot of changes now where a lot of restaurants now have the terminal that they'll bring to you, but you will still go to restaurants and bars and places like that where they need to take your card to process the transaction. They might be making a copy of it. I mean, I shouldn't tell you not to worry because I don't actually know what they're doing with your credit card back there. The 41st thing that surprised people coming to the USA is Uber and taxi drivers sharing their life stories and struggles. Yes, many Uber and taxi drivers are very chatty, and I often do find that they like to talk about how challenging it is to be a taxi driver or an Uber driver. because the taxi drivers are stealing their work, or the Uber drivers are stealing their work, or it used to be better and it's not better anymore. And so yes, I don't know. Maybe I think they're doing that to fish for more tips, to be like, woe is me, and if you feel like I have a rough life, you'll give me more money for driving you around. The 42nd thing that surprised visitors coming to the USA is that many toilets at fast food restaurants like McDonald's in big cities are locked to keep out the homeless and to keep out the junkies. Words of other fellow explorers. Here the toilet paper was locked. And yes, a fairly common, the Chipotle that I like to go to, they have a button code on the restroom. And so yes, you need to ask an employee for what's the code for the restroom for them to open it for you. It's free. You don't have to pay to use it, but they absolutely do make sure that only customers use it by putting the code on the door. Sometimes like you'll have a key to go get the restroom too. I hate that because I don't like to carry the key. Someone else used the restroom and now they take this key and they come back and then I have to touch that same key that they touched, and I'll generally wrap it with a paper towel when I walk around with that key. All right. The 43rd thing that surprised people is how cold our drinks are. My drink here has a lot of ice in it. My horchata over there that I got in Phoenix has a lot of ice in it. We like our drinks cold in the USA. It's got to have a lot of ice. Which is then why Americans go to Europe and get like 1 cube of ice in the Coke and be like, what, can I have some more ice? And you get a 2nd cube. And you were like, no, I meant like, can you fill it up halfway with ice and then put in the drink? Like cold, I need my soda cold. But yes, if you don't want it cold, ask for no ice. Or ask for your ice on the side, right? Restaurants will absolutely do that too. Yes, Epic Wolf says, if you want to go someplace where you don't want to be asked, go to Target, go to Walmart, go to Best Buy, go to like big stores like that, and then you don't need a code. The bathrooms won't be locked. You just go and use the bathrooms. Justin Thomas says, I love American Ice. Every hotel should have an ice machine on every floor. I agree, Justin Thomas. +1 for that right there. By the way, if you are enjoying this video and you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do so. It really helps me with YouTube. I got YouTube algorithm because it lets YouTube know that you enjoy the video so they can share it with more people. So if you have not hit the thumbs up button, please do so. Love from me and the Yellow Productions crew back here for the thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. The 44th thing that surprised people coming to the USA is that our tap water tastes terrible. This is from a fellow explorer in Canada. Boy, in Canada, they got like the glacier melt. You know, so like the tap water in Canada, really pretty good. But yeah, the tap water in the USA comes a long way. And like if you're in Los Angeles, you're drinking water that's come on the Colorado River all the way from Colorado. Like it's gone a long way, and it's been chlorinated and fluoridated and who knows what. And so yes, in most people's homes that drink tap water have like elaborate filtration systems to filter the water to make it taste better. If you're drinking water that's straight out of the faucet, it usually doesn't taste that great. By the way, I've seen the likes go up from 61 to 74, so thank you very much from that. I see somebody said, did I get a facial? Valerian says, did you get a facial? Your skin looks smooth. You know what this is, Valerian? This is clearly what I have the colors set on related to my yellow shirt. And so when I wear a different shirt, then there's like some different color scheme that the camera's trying to adjust for that and makes me look a little bit more shiny, maybe? Something like that. Yeah, there we go. Brandon says, my city has some great tap water. Brandon, remind us all where you are again so people can know where to drink some fantastic tap water. Okay. Smash the Number says Dasani, maybe Dasani. It's literally Detroit City water. You're paying for the bottling. Yeah, and there are many places that actually have really good tap water. So here we go. Cottage of Love says in near Lake Tahoe, it's really good. Well water, so good. No fluoride here. The 45th thing that surprised visitors coming to the USA, particularly those from the UK and Australia, is how we pronounce this. This, let me make this big so you see this. This! This in the USA is aluminum. Aluminum foil. If we're in the UK, it would be aluminium. Aluminium, but it's aluminum. Aluminum foil. The 46th thing that surprised visitors to the USA is how hard it is to get healthy food. And I think this is one where people often cite that they're used to maybe having like a meal that has some meat and some veg and some soup, and like that sit down meal with meat and some veg and some soup is kind of like a thing of the past in the USA. You know, we like our food quick, we like it in burrito form, we like it in sandwich form, and so you do have to take a bit about like, well, how do I get my healthy food in the form of a burrito? I get a burrito bowl. I go to a place that serves salad. If you want salad, like you can have like a salad as a meal. This is a breakfast place I like near our house that makes some really good oatmeal. And this is like some healthy stuff, like some strawberries and some blueberries and some granola on top of the oatmeal. It's really quite good. But if you're in a like small town USA, like the only restaurants you're gonna see now are McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, because these big chains have pushed out all the little mom and pop things that used to serve the classic American food, and now you've just got that highly processed food that you feel like you can't get anything healthy. I would say where you'll tend to find the healthy food is absolutely in the probably smaller places, or then also in the ethnic places. You know, go get some Thai food, go get some poke, go get some Japanese food, go get some Mediterranean food, and that's where you'll probably start to find a lot of that fruit and veg come back into your food. The 47th thing that surprised visitors to the USA is how expensive an apple is. This is a really interestingly specific one, but somebody cited this that they were surprised how expensive apples were. It goes with how hard it is to get healthy food, but how expensive it is to get fruit. And I feel like this is an experience that somebody probably had on the Las Vegas Strip, where they were like, man, when I went to my casino hotel and wanted an apple, it was like $5. They're really pretty cheap if you go to the supermarket, but you got to get out of the tiny little convenient places, and you got to go to like the bulk place that's 47,000 items if you want to get a cheap apple. The 48th thing that surprised visitors coming to the USA is that America feels like a pay-to-play tiered system based on how much money you have. This one was submitted from a fellow explorer from New Zealand, and they said, feels like in America you can get in if you've got the cash, but if you want to skip the line or access the better experience, you'll need to fork out even more. It's like the whole culture is built on tiered access with invisible boundaries based on how much money you're willing or able to spend. Yes. I mean, you go to Disneyland, you can pay more money to skip the line. You go to Las Vegas, you can pay more money to skip the line. I mean, there's all this like, but if you don't have the money and you don't skip the line, you stand in the long line, right? You get the better things if you pay more. America is definitely a very capitalism at its finest, is what some people would say. The 49th thing that surprised people, this is a funny one, is how similar the USA is to Mexico. And so in particular, there was a Mexican explorer that was reading through the thread, and they said, I never really realized how much Mexico and the USA have in common until I looked through this thread and realized that 80% of these things apply to Mexico too. And I also heard many people say the 50th thing that surprised people when they come to the USA and Canada is that Canada and the USA also have a lot in common. There are people who said Canada feels like the 51st state. It's not. We're not trying to make it the 51st state. But at surface level, you go to Canada, there's a lot of similar chains, there's a lot of similar culture sort of stuff. You will not find as much ice in your drinks in Canada, for sure. It's colder up there. You will find more French speaking in Canada. This thing of Quebec over here, like French is the primary language over there. But yes, definitely as our neighbors to the north, we have a lot in common with Canada. I would like to thank everybody who commented, each one of you that left the 500 comments, or maybe some of you left 5, I don't know. So thank you so much for providing all this feedback to make this video possible. I would also like to thank all of my channel members right over here that support the channel on a monthly basis and make all this possible too. You are all awesome.
Fellow explorers, it is now Q&A time. If you've got a question, I've got an answer.
All right, fellow explorers, what's your question? Or what did I leave out? What did I leave out? What surprises you that I didn't get to in my top 50? Jet and Compass says, great list. Thank you, Jet and Compass. Mars112 says, that was a fun talk. Thank you very much, Mars112. Speaking of prices, Epic Wolf says there's a supermarket in LA called Gelson's, and it is $20 an apple. There are certainly some expensive supermarkets. If Gelson's is $20 for an apple, then Erewhon is $40 for an apple. If you don't know anything about Erewhon, when you come to LA, you need to seek out Erewhon. It is the most ridiculously expensive small market you'll ever go to in your entire life. Points Traveler says, where'd you get that shirt? I don't know. I've had this shirt for a long time. It's like my July 4th shirt I take out usually on July 4th. But if I'm doing a video about America, I feel like it works pretty well. Janelle says it was a fun video. Thank you very much. Tony Kane says, can you tell me about Springdale, Utah? I've got a job opportunity there and would like to know as much as I can. I know you've done vids already. I've done videos about Zion, but I don't know that I've done anything like directly about the town of Spring. Anyway, you can look at my Zion videos that I talk about Springdale. It's small town America. Soham says, what's your favorite cuisine in the USA? In-N-Out Burger, #1. Mexican food, and then pizza. I realize Mexican food is like a gigantic cuisine, but I love burritos, I love tacos, I love tortas, and I love almost anything in the form of a pizza. So there we go. Meritocratic Mafia says, another thing is how prevalent American flags print on all kind of stuff. Absolutely, we love our flags, and we love our flags on things too. Culture says, off topic, but I want to ask you for a long time, would you feel safe visiting Hong Kong right now? You inspired me to visit there from your video on it, but I'm not sure today. I'm not sure today either, Culture. I would say recently I was deciding where to connect on a flight, and I decided I did not want to connect through Hong Kong today. All right. Sneezy Jean says, bowl of burrito. Burrito, definitely. I can use my hands, and I don't need to use a utensil. Larry says, besides the rhetoric the past 8 years, the USA is very accepting of all cultures. I mean, I think generally we are. I think there's been my experience of growing up, but I will say that I've heard, and again, it's probably like a middle country thing, you know, like, and I don't want to call out any particular states other than those middle states. People are like, Chris, I'm in one of those middle states. Yes, the middle states. Okay. Alex, an explorer who's been a member for 19 months supporting the channel. Thank you, Alex. Says, the alley is the place at Irvine Spectrum. No. Yes, the alley is the place at Irvine Spectrum. Absolutely. Though this one I got in Westminster, but same place where you had that drink, Alex. Okay. Dining with Derek says, can you do a live stream on how you book your trips, like booking flights and hotels? I will add that to my list, Derek. Thank you. Jet and Compass says, what's the next adventure? Our next family adventure is going to be going to Santa Cruz. We've been to Santa Cruz before, but was before the Curious Princess, so we thought the Curious Princess would enjoy Santa Cruz, particularly hiking through the redwoods and the steam train that goes up to the redwoods, and it's like a mystery house or things like that, the boardwalk on the beach, so there we go. Yes, Epic Wolf says, I have to finance just for a cup of coffee at Erewhon. It's crazy. It's crazy. Grant says, did you see Wall Street Journal's airline rankings today? Delta first, Southwest Airlines second, Allegiant fourth. That's hilarious. That's hilarious, Grant. Thank you. No, I haven't seen it. Larry says, Tex-Mex isn't Mexican food. I agree. Alex says, burgers, Mexican pizza. Can pretty much answer that for him at any point. Absolutely. If you've heard me for a while, you know I often say that. Jonathan says, you should do a video that surprised visitors to California. All right, I will add that to the list. Brandon says it was fun. Forever bestowing incompetence as any Tijuana vids. No, I have an Ensenada video, but that's the closest. I've not been to Tijuana in a while. Points Traveler says, went to Hong Kong in November. Thought it was fantastic. Never felt unsafe. And this is where, like, I wouldn't feel unsafe from a, I wouldn't feel unsafe from a, like that the triads are going to get me or something like that. Or I would feel unsafe is of the people disappearing from Hong Kong. Okay. Electric Rick says a stovetop hat would go well with that shirt. Fun show tonight. I need to get a big top hat to go with it. Skosh says, I hope you're having a great night. Sure am. GP says, do you like Orange County more than San Diego? It's a really tough question, GP. I'm really conflicted over this since I'm born and raised in San Diego. I like both San Diego and Orange County. San Diego is a great like outdoorsy city, great beaches in San Diego. The beaches in San Diego are way better than the beaches in Orange County, Chris's opinion. Free parking, all sort of stuff, lots of things to love. Orange County being next to LA just has a lot more to do on a daily basis. There's Disneyland, there's all these sorts of things. I spend a lot of time in both places, so they're both near and dear to my heart. If you ask me, Chris, do you like Orange County more than Los Angeles or San Diego more than Los Angeles? My answer would be yes to both of those questions. Cottage Full of Love just signed up to be a channel member. Thank you so much, Cottage Full of Love, for your support. I really appreciate it. And yes, I see your I see that in the chat. So awesome. Thank you, Cottage Full of Love. Rhino says Santa Cruz is great. The other thing I do for channel members that I'm starting to do now is posting pictures of my travel. So as I'm out and about places, because it's taking me a while to edit the videos of places. So if you want to be like up on the daily about like where Chris is and what's he posting, I post a picture. I will be posting my first set just a couple days ago, but I'll be posting more of them, more pictures of my travels as I'm around. That might be the things I don't even get around to make a video before, or you might just get a earlier preview of it. Okay. Let's go ahead and go here.
Yes, it's the time you've been waiting for. It's time for the giveaway.
All right, fellow explorers, it's time for a giveaway to someone who can answer one of my questions. It is to win this Yellow Productions shirt right here with Topher and the Curious Princess on it. And my question for you is earlier, I put up a picture of a stop sign when I was talking about four-way stops. What was on that stop sign? There were some other words on that stop sign. What were the other words on the stop sign? If you are the first person to put that in the chat, you will win this Yellow Productions crew shirt shipped to you anywhere in the world. Now, if you don't get to win one, you want to buy one, how do you do that? You can buy one at the Yellow Production shop. You'll find the link right there. You'll also find the link in the description below. And if you're like, Chris, when is the next live stream? It won't be next week. It'll probably be the week after. But if you want to sign up and know exactly what day it's going to be and what the topic's going to be, and am I going to do that thing that Derek suggested, make a live stream about how I plan my travels? I don't know yet because I haven't outlined it yet. But as soon as I do, I always send an email out to my mailing list, the Yellow Productions update, that you can sign up for right here.
And now we have a winner chicken dinner.
Winner chicken dinner. The first person to answer correctly was Windy City Elevators. Congratulations. You were the first person to say stop and smell the ocean. Because, yes, indeedy do. Stop and smell the ocean right there. That was what the stop sign said. So Windy City Elevators, send me an email to chris@yellow-productions.com. You'll find that email in the description. Make sure there's a dash in there. Let me know your address. Let me know what size of shirt you want, and I will get that headed out to you right away shortly. I might stop and smell the ocean on my way to mail that out to you. Because, hey, grew up in San Diego, so if the ocean smells nice, or it's a good sunset, I'm gonna go do that. All right, well, fellow explorers, it's been a pleasure hanging out with y'all today. Thank you so much. Always have a great time with you on these streams. As usual, I won't say goodbye because I'm gonna see you in the next video.